Good morning and welcome to another edition of Research Fantasy presents our MLB DFS pitcher picks for Monday, June 26, 2017. We'll only be saying June for a couple more days and we will be officially halfway through the year. I'm very happy. I've had a very good weekend. Didn't take down anything monstrous, but finished second in the CFL $4 kickoff for a nice little prize. Plus, because I've entered that lineup in a couple of other tournaments, did fairly well. So really excited to see what the CFL season holds. Had a good day in NASCAR, fair day in baseball, and here we are on Monday evening, a 6-game baseball slate, and it's rather ugly again, excuse me. Why do I think it's ugly? Well, unlike yesterday where you really had to stretch yourself to find a solid pitcher to run out, we've actually got more than one pitcher that is not horrible. In fact, you could pretty much look through this list and come up with a case to not target most of these pitchers. So what does that mean? Well, for one, I think it's the inverse of yesterday where we couldn't find a pitcher to put on our team. We're going to have somewhat of an embarrassment of riches. I think that there will still be ultimately one player that ends up with a very high ownership. I think that there will be a secondary play that comes in right behind them, and then I think we'll see the third spot smattered between several different players. But ultimately, I do think it's going to force a lot of the same bats into cash game play, just because there's really only 2 to 4 pitchers who I think we really want to go out of our way to attack tonight. And that's great for tournaments because much like yesterday, it really forces some diversity. You're probably going to have maybe 20 nights a year where the chalk hits and it sends a chalk-filled lineup to the top of a tournament board. Otherwise, it's going to be all about how you manage to figure out where you differentiate your lineup to separate yourself from the pack. With all that being said, let's talk 3 of my favorite pitchers on this slate today. Let's start out with Jeff Samardzija of the San Francisco Giants taking on the visiting Colorado Rockies. Now, I'll admit, I'm not a huge fan of Jeff Samardzija. Right now, he's sitting at 16-4 on Fantasy Draft, 8,300 on FanDuel, 8,400 on DraftKings. He's on this list because none of the low-tier pitching is really appetizing. I mean, sure, you can find a situation where Ricky Nolasco might luck himself into 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, and 1 earned run and get the win, because baseball's like that sometimes. Strange things happen. I told you yesterday, Parker Bridwell was going to end up pulling out a fair performance against the Red Sox, and what do you know? In a fairly good matchup, the Red Sox came through with 2 runs. Samardzija, though, has been possibly the most consistent pitcher this year outside of a little bit of a rough start, which saw him take on teams in bad pitching situations. I can remember Colorado for sure, and I think there might have been a visit to Chase Field as well. Since then, he's been incredibly sharp, and he's taking on a Colorado team that, yes, has an intimidating lineup, but we ultimately favor them in their home ballpark as opposed to on the road. Samardzija has one of the higher strikeout rates, and I think he should be able to find his way through this Colorado Rockies lineup. And I think he could as well end up being one of the higher-owned plays. He does have a game at AT&T Park against them this year. He gave up 7. He went 7 innings, gave up 8 hits, no walks, 8 strikeouts, 4 earned runs, did not get the win, and it was not a quality start. One thing to mention about Jeff Samardzija, this dude does not walk anybody. Look at this. 0-1, 0-1, 0-0-1, 0-0-0-0-1, 0-3, 0-4-2. This dude has excellent control. Only 2 instances of double-digit strikeouts this year, but I do think this is a possibility that he could get as high as 8. Makes an excellent play. I don't know if I like him as my SP1. I think he's a little too risky for cash games. I'm fine with him as my SP1 in tournaments, or as an SP2 if you think he can fit the bats in. Moving on from there, I want to take a look at Jose Berrios of the Minnesota Twins. Right now, he is 28K, 20,800 on Fantasy Draft, 9,600 FanDuel, 10,700 on DraftKings. Berrios looks excellent this year. Got a very high strikeout rate. Has really only had one poor outing. Other than that, he's been silky smooth. Had only one double-digit strikeout game, but he's really mitigated the amount of runs that he's given up. What's my concern? My concern is my deal with Boston is I always feel like they come through when they shouldn't. We saw them be the first team to shellac Irvin Santana, who's just been excellent this year. We've seen other situations where they've gone against crappy pitching and they just can't, fight their way out of a wet paper bag. Then we see them go up against, above average to elite pitchers, and it's a run parade. So it does have me a little bit nervous. However, I do think Berrios is a talented enough pitcher to be able to get his way around that. I find him likely to go deep into the game. He's gone 8 innings his last 2 games. So the upside is definitely there. Can't do it in cash games tonight because I just don't love the opponent, but in tournaments I think he makes a terrific play, and I think many others will as well. There's no other place to look tonight for your cash game play than Chris Sale, who has been unquestionably the best pitcher in baseball this year, and I don't even really know how close it is. Taking on a Minnesota team that's full of some pretty talented hitters, but when you start breaking down individual matchups, the only thing that I'm really nervous about is maybe Sale against Brian Dozier. You're not concerned about Sale versus Max Kepler, Sale versus Eddie Rosario, Sale versus Jason Castro or Byron Buxton. I mean, I think that this is a very good situation for him. I really like the upside, and he's safe. I mean, yes, he's I don't know if he's actually gone an outing this year where he hasn't given up a run. He's had 2 outings, one against Pittsburgh, one at Toronto. Has not faced this Minnesota team yet this year, but basically he's, I don't want to say a lock, but he's a pretty good bet to hit double-digit strikeouts, pretty good bet to go 7 innings plus, pretty good bet to get the win. That's the tough part. The win is going to be tough. Jose Berrios, very good pitcher. But nonetheless, I mean, the upside of Chris Sale is better than anyone else on this slate, so I don't mind having exposure to him. Once again, that wraps us up. I'll tell you again my 3 favorite pitching options: Jeff Samardzija, Jose Berrios, Chris Sale. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check us out tomorrow. Subscribe to the YouTube channel below. Head over to researchfantasy.com, see what we are adding there. Like us on Facebook at Research Fantasy. Follow us on Twitter at Research and Win, and join us again tomorrow.